I wanted to ask you about this story with the USS Theodore Roosevelt and the USS Ronald Reagan, the only two U.S. aircraft carriers in the Pacific. They've had sailors on both ships test positive for the Wuhan coronavirus. And so now one is back in port in Guam, where they think it might be for a month. And then the Reagan is in port in Tokyo. Is this, I know that some media are saying, I know Daily Mail and others are saying, oh, China's got a free hand. Is that accurate? And does that even, I think they're lying about their figures. So I think that they're dealing with their own crisis right now with this pandemic that they helped kickstart and contribute to the world. So do we need to worry about that? And has that hampered us in that area? Because I know we can't immediately stop worrying about foreign policy issues. All of this stuff can happen concurrently.
Well, there are some reasons to worry. Number one, China has the advantage of being the originator of this in a thoroughly authoritarian government, which doesn't have to value any human life at all. And so they can crank all of their resources for political or other forms of warfare against us and others whenever they want. And so that should concern us. Right. We should be concerned about the size and the strength of our naval fleet. The president invested greatly at the beginning of his administration, and we've made some strides. But that's an investment after a deep hole in the funding for new weapons platforms for some time. And that was when we thought that the war on terror was going to be basically a new form of warfare, and there was willful ignorance about the sustaining rising powers of China, Russia, and others. So if we're going to have multiple trillion-dollar porculus bills going forward, and it sounds like Speaker Pelosi wants more, if a lot of that goes to give our naval fleet an ample supply so that if we get sickness in a densely populated vessel, it can pull off and keep people healthy and what have you, and we're still the biggest, baddest thumping power there is on the Pacific, then I'm somewhat okay with it.
Yeah.
But we have reason to worry if we don't invest in the strength and resilience of our force and capabilities, and if we forget that we're up against the kind of threat that I think more of our representatives and senators have come around to, and maybe more of our public has, but I worry that all the focus on trying to engage in political warfare at home is going to cloud people's perspective that really China did this, and they're not going away. And when we have Governor Cuomo on the same sheet of music with President Trump that we're at war, I'm not saying we're at war with China, but the Communist Party in some ways has been at war with us already, and we need to be wise about that.
Yeah, very wise about it. Whether it's dealing with hacking or IP theft or anything like that. China's been for some time. This has been it's just been a threat to national security. Do you agree with when you hear people like Senator Tom Cotton and others now are saying this too, that and now apparently even number 10 over in UK, which I'm finally happy to hear this kind of language coming out of Europe, they're saying that China faces a reckoning. What does that mean to you?
Well, it definitely has meaning to me that maybe not everyone else shares, because I've spent a huge chunk of my life studying and following things China. And I like what Senator Cotton has said. Senator Josh Hawley has been outstanding on this subject matter in recent times, too. And there's the health part of this that matters, but there's the idea of one of the most populous countries in the world being run by an authoritarian liar, and that having economic consequences as well as other strategic consequences. There needs to be a way to make sure that we impose a price on the sovereign that imposed these prices on us.
Yeah.
The taxpayers of the United States shouldn't have to foot these trillion-dollar after trillion-dollar bills. And so that, I think, has to take some effect. But I'd like to hope that in 2020, the voters of America, as they're asking questions of our leaders, keep on the list of questions they put to them about how can we have any kind of a normal relationship with a country like China when it seems so willing to do this kind of damage to us.
Yeah.
And that's, get away from the silly, petty politics of ethnicity and is that racist or whatever else. I mean, we can't afford this kind of criminal blindness that we've had in recent past. And so I'd like to think that even Democrats and Republicans might get some consensus in this.
Yeah, I would definitely hope so. I know China's mad right now because the United States has been insisting that the United Nations call out the Chinese origins of the Wuhan coronavirus. They had a Security Council resolution. It was reported over the weekend, actually Friday, that a resolution on this stalled out because China was mad that that the United States is trying to single them out solely as the country of origin, even though everybody knows that it originated there. At this point, when you see the catastrophic consequence of not just, China's communist ruling, but also their influence on the World Health Organization and the United Nations, do you think that after the United States has brought through this and we stabilize the loss of life and contain the spread of this pandemic further, is it fair to now start, pushing our Congress people to question what in the world we're even involved in these organizations for in the first place? Because aren't they in existence to prevent stuff like this from happening? I honestly don't see the value anymore.
Well, I think that's something that all sensible people in the world should be getting a sense for at this point. It shouldn't take a crisis like this to make people wake up to the fact of the utter uselessness and ineffectiveness of the UN Security Council, of the World Health Organization. Really, all of the effort that has been done to make any meaningful progress in any of this health crisis has been done by sovereign states alone working with other sovereign states.
Right.
So I would oppose any further pennies and nickels going to this organization. And the leader of the World Health Organization has been like Baghdad Bob in terms of talking about Beijing propaganda from the beginning.
Yes.
And so why in the world should we pay for that? Give China the full bill for that bogus organization. But for real stuff, it's going to come down to our own sovereign government dealing with other sovereign governments in making any kind of progress on this. And it's not any different when it comes to national security issues. The Security Council hasn't done really anything of use in containing the Iranian nuclear threat, the North Korean nuclear threat. While we're all focused rightly on fear about the COVID-19 stuff because you can't get away from it right now, the world hasn't stopped, and this story isn't going to stop. And I guess my biggest concern is that when we focus on these shelter-in-place, bend-the-curve kind of arguments, there are entire swaths of the globe that haven't reported hardly any cases. And it's just not logically possible that the continent of Africa is completely blank on this, and that a lot of Latin America is blank on this, that the country of Mexico doesn't have a problem with this.
Right.
And so, we're going to have a long-term struggle with this.